Hey guys, welcome back. As I said in my first video, I do offer a service for providing expert personalised feedback to your personal statement. This can be done by dropping me an email. All of the details have been posted below, so make sure you check it out. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hi guys, and welcome to the session on common pitfalls. So the common pitfalls are essentially things that you really want to avoid. And a lot of people sort of fall into these traps. And I'm going to tell you what these traps are so that you don't fall into these same traps. And hopefully you can sort of implement these and look out for these in your personal statements so that you can, well, just avoid them. A big thing, avoid stating the obvious. So for instance, there's no need to include what you were studying or your grades in your personal statement. So this is something that universities will already have access to in their files, in their application from UCAS. So you don't want to waste any space saying, I do maths, I do history, I do economics, because they already know this. They know your grades. Don't go out saying, oh, I got an A in history. Well, they know that. That's wasting space. So things that universities already know, don't just come in and say. When I was at university, a big thing which my sort of tutor, or what they called a director of studies, told me was that they receive a lot of personal statements and people just state the obvious about the university or about the city. So at Cambridge, for instance, there's something called an SAQ, which is a supplementary additional questionnaire. And this goes directly to Cambridge. And people will be wasting space saying, oh, Cambridge is such a great city. It's got such a nice feel. All the people are nice. It's really old. It's historic. Obviously, an admission tutor from Cambridge will know this sort of stuff. So things that they will already know, just avoid putting it in there. A big thing to avoid is university names. Your applications will be going out to up to 5 different universities, depending on how many you apply to. And this is the same personal statement. So it's not like you're going to be sending a different one to each of them. You're sending one personal statement, which they will all be reading. So say, for instance, you had ambition to go to Oxford or Cambridge. You don't want to say this in your personal statement. You don't want to be saying, oh yeah, I really want to study political PPE at Oxford, for instance, or the political side of it or the economic side. You want to keep it balanced and avoid saying university names because other universities will be deterred. Because imagine if you were, say, Warwick University, an admission student from there, and then you read this personal statement and it's very clearly targeted to Oxford or Cambridge, you'd be like, well, they don't want to be here. Someone else wants this place a lot more. We can reject them. So yeah, that's just something to avoid. Lists, definitely avoid lists. I can't stress this enough. And this doesn't mean just bullet points of your ideas. This means saying you do things without sort of developing the idea. So for instance, some people say, oh, I read Freakonomics. Oh, I read The Economist. Oh, I do this. Oh, I do that. Why is it in there? If you're putting something in your personal statement, really question what value it adds. So if you're saying you read The Economist and you're stopping there, that's not adding any value. And that's a very common pitfall for prospective economics students. They say, oh, I'm an avid reader of The Economist. But then you get to an interview or you would get questions on it and it would be like, well, what did you read? What did you like about it? What have you read recently that sort of really spiked your interest? And that's what should be going in your personal statement. So if you're saying you read The Economist, drop in an article, drop in something you read recently, comment on it, say what you learned, say what you really enjoyed about it. Avoid flattery. You don't want to just be sort of saying, oh yeah, you guys are the best. I really want to do this. Like, it would be amazing if I get in because you guys are so good. That's not really going to sell you and really gain you a place that you deserve. You're not going to get a place based on just flattery and sort of trying to please someone. So just avoid doing it. Another one is avoid harsh criticism. So if you are reading an article, bear in mind these are going to be from, if it's an academic article, say you get something from Google Scholar or a different sort of paper or reading, these are likely to be articles from some of the most prominent or successful academics in the world. And if you're sort of being very harshly criticizing them, you need to sort of be wary, because a lot of their research will have years of backing, years of hard work, and it will be quite thought through. So if you're going to criticize it, make sure you have a solid argument behind it, so that you don't just look quite naive and weak. And a big thing is, you don't want to be too harsh in your criticism, because well, the admission tutors might just disagree completely with you. But this isn't to say don't have opinions, don't have ideas, don't have creativity. But just, if you're going to criticize something, make sure you can back it up with enough sort of your own ideas, and back with hard facts and statistics. A classic sort of story from admissions is when someone has really criticized someone, said, oh, the work's really bad, it's poorly written, they didn't really understand the concept. They get to the interview at Cambridge and they realize they're being interviewed by the person who's written this paper. So quite often, if you go to these elite universities at Cambridge or Oxford, the papers you'll be reading will be written by the people who specialize in the field. And if they see that you've given them harsh criticism, they will probably be proactive in making sure that they can be there to really challenge you and really make you look a bit silly. So yeah, just a bit of a bit off scope I went there, but just be cautious when you're criticizing. And if you are going to criticize, do it in a proactive way. Do it in a way where you're actually looking at a different perspective, as opposed to just criticizing how they write or their argument. So yeah, just be careful with that. Avoid details about your A-level subjects. So this kind of goes on from the last one about avoiding just listing your A-levels. You don't want to just be saying, oh, in economics, we've been learning about the marginal diminishing returns. We've been learning about this. We've been learning how to draw this graph. Because admissions tutors, they know the syllabus. They know what you're studying at your A-levels. So don't waste space talking through what you're studying. Another one, avoid things that happen before your GCSEs. So you don't want to be talking about something like an example from 5, 6, 7 years ago, because it's not relevant. Universities want to know who you are now, and they want to know who you're going to be in the future. They don't want to know what your hobbies were when you were 10 or 9. But this isn't to say that if you have been doing something your whole life, so for instance, I played football my whole life, and I can draw valuable lessons from it: teamwork, hard-working mentality, working towards a common goal. Those are some examples of what I can draw from football. But that's something I've done my whole life, and I can bring that in as an example because I still do it. But if it's something you've done years ago, then just avoid bringing it in, because it will be sort of quite irrelevant, and they'll be like, why are they bringing up this really old example? It's not adding any value. Another thing is to avoid including books that you haven't read, particularly if you are applying to Oxford or Cambridge where you have an interview, because there's a good chance that in the interview they will sort of question you quite thoroughly about these books that you've read. Because they do quite like to sort of try and catch you out in an interview, because they do have to sift out different applicants. So if you have read the book, they will want to know specifically your thoughts, your opinions, what you thought was interesting, and they'll really challenge you to really sort of get an engaging debate. So if you are going to include these in your interview, in your personal statement, make sure you've read the book. It may sound simple, but yeah, you don't want to be in that position where you haven't read a book, get questioned on it, and then you sort of sat a bit hesitant. A piece of advice I can give is that obviously reading books does take a very long time, but you don't necessarily have to have a book, like load of books in your personal statement. You could bring instead different articles or academic papers, which are much quicker and shorter to read. And these also show a great interest in your subject. Yeah. Avoid starting too late. It's simple. They start accepting applicants as soon as people apply. So the earlier you start, the earlier you're likely to get into university. If you leave it right till the deadline, a lot of the places might already be gone. And also, if you leave it to the deadline, it might be a bit rushed. It might not be to the highest standard it can be. And this could damage your chances of getting into university. Another thing is to avoid extenuating circumstances. This is something which could either be given by reference or actually as part of your UCAS application. it's not going to be sort of driving home why you want to study economics, and it's not really going to help you get a place. And lastly, of course, you want to avoid plagiarism. It could be easy to go online and say, oh, you know what, I might just go look for a really nice personal statement, just copy and paste it in. They won't know, change it a bit here and there. They will find out. They will be run through systems where they can check how much or what sort of percentage of the work is plagiarized. But you shouldn't want to plagiarize anyway, because this is your personal story. It's your chance to tell your story to the admissions tutor, to tell them why you deserve a place, to tell them what you've done in your life. We've all led interesting lives. The difficulty is putting it on paper to sort of really promote yourself, which is in itself a big challenge. But yeah, that's just a sort of a list of some of the things and the common pitfalls that you really want to avoid. I hope it's been interesting, and definitely look out for these things to avoid in your own personal statement. And if you see them, then just think about it. Like, think about how you can change it, how you can adapt it to make it much more suitable for the personal statement itself. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. In the next session, we're going to have a look at the optional extras. So we're going to briefly cover extracurricular side, and we're also going to have a little discussion about applying to Oxbridge. So I hope to see you guys in a bit.